I'm going to share a cheat code, a little secret. It relates to Lamar Jackson and why I think we should be getting in and why he's a little bit undervalued right now. This is the Dynasty Market Report, where we look at a specific asset in Dynasty Fantasy Football, a pick, a player, and we look at real trades that have happened for them in the market. Because we all know one of the best ways to make our Dynasty team better is to buy low, sell high. But what is low? What is high? If you're not tracking the market, you might not know. And like what I was saying with Lamar Jackson, one of the cheat codes in fantasy football is just grab a player coming off of injury. Just grab a player coming off of injury. You say it like that, it sounds so easy, but when I'm looking at the trades involving Lamar Jackson, the market is low on him. Here's a follow-up secret. When you trade for an asset in Dynasty Fantasy Football, you don't have to start them for the full year. They are not your future. Keep it in mind, when you trade for someone, maybe you only need to see a few weeks of production from them for their value to rebound and you can get out. And I think that's what we have here with Lamar Jackson. Now, 2025 was a pretty down year for the Ravens. A lot of this team missed time. By about week 5 of the year, I think it was a massive chunk of their salary cap was just injured, and it was everywhere. Lamar was injured, offensive linemen were injured, multiple key defensive pieces were injured, and the team just could not recover. They missed the playoffs and they moved on from their head coach, but they've brought in a solid young defensive coordinator, a star defensive coordinator, just like we saw with the Seahawks, to take over, and I see upside for Lamar. Now, like I was saying, we don't need to start him for the full season. If you look at Lamar Jackson's first 3 weeks from 2025, he scored between 25 and 30 fantasy points in all of them. And if we go into 2026 and we're midway through September and he's been putting up 26, 29, 27 fantasy points like he was in 2025, you can just get out at the high end. Right now we get in low, we start him for 3 weeks and move on. That is how you should be thinking about trades. Because when we look at some of these trades, the market is low on Lamar. Here, we'll go through them. And before we bring these up, each of these are real trades that have happened from different dynasty leagues. Here, someone sent Patrick Mahomes and got Lamar Jackson and Matthew Golden. I don't even need Matthew Golden added in on that trade. I would rather have Lamar than Mahomes. They both had injury issues in 2025. I'll take the Lamar side. Let's take a look at this next deal. Someone sent Lamar and they got Trevor Lawrence and Harold Fannin. Now, we have a video on Trevor Lawrence. I'll link it on the screen. I don't know where they show up, but it will be somewhere. And in that video, I mentioned Trevor Lawrence has been up 1 year, down the next year, up 1 year, down the next year. He's kind of the opposite side of what we're talking about with Lamar Jackson. If Lamar comes back and we see him hot out the gate, his value is going to rebound. If Trevor Lawrence starts in 2026 and we see him look like the way Trevor Lawrence did at the start of 2025, there's more room for a value collapse there. So I like Lamar more than Lawrence in general, just as a player, but then I also really like the bit more value insulation that you get from Lamar Jackson. People trust his long-term production slightly more than they do with Trevor Lawrence right now. And if things break the way that they have in the past, where Lamar looks great and Lawrence looks pretty bad, there's going to be a big gulf in value within that first month of the year. And you just want to have that liquidity or slightly more locked in. Like Lamar's not going to lose as much value. For this next deal, we have Lamar Jackson and the 104 for Justin Herbert, Breece Hall, and the 206. And if we're breaking this down, I like Lamar way more than Herbert. I like the 104 about the same as Breece Hall, if not more. And then the 206, it has some value. I can't say that it has no value, but if I'm just using the 206 to up tier at 2 other spots, going from Herbert to Lamar and Breece to a better wide receiver, probably, I'll take that deal. Now, that's just how we feel right now in the offseason before the draft has happened. If the NFL draft happens and there are not very many high-end wide receivers, we'll change our opinion there. But right now with the 104, I could probably move that for a good wide receiver or a better running back than Breece Hall. So then it's just 2 up tiers, Herbert to Lamar, Breece Hall to the 104 to a better running back. And then the 206 to make it happen, I'll take the Lamar side of that deal. How about Lamar for the 105, 106, and Javonte Williams? I would probably want about 3 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson in most years, but right now I'm not sure how good the 106 will be. And then Javonte Williams, I would not count as a first round pick value. I just don't know what his situation is going into free agency to know which team he'll be playing for and how good of a rushing offense they have. I'm slightly down on Javonte Williams in general. When I look at Brian Schottenheimer, the coach for the Dallas Cowboys, he has a track record in the NFL of taking running backs that you don't really think that highly of and getting really good production from them. Like, think of Chris Carson with the Seahawks. You might be thinking, who's Chris Carson? It was not that long ago that Chris Carson, somewhat a no-name running back, was doing really well for the Seahawks when Schottenheimer was the offensive coordinator there. That is kind of just the coach boosting a player. That's the way I describe it to myself. So if I can just get out on Javonte Williams, I would be. And I'm not really looking to acquire him because I don't know how much upside I see in him. I see a lot of potential downside. So it's not someone I want to bring in if I'm moving on from Lamar. I want to get about 3 good firsts. I don't feel like I am in that deal. Here's a deal where I would want Lamar Jackson, even though it is 3 firsts. It's Stroud, the 110 and a 28 random first. I'm not feeling great about the 110 this year. Having to trade all the way into 2028 to get a random first and then bringing in CJ Stroud, who has really fallen off from a really highly thought of quarterback to just an okay pocket passer. People are starting to come around now in the offseason in 2026 that Brock Purdy is probably as good or better than CJ Stroud for fantasy football and real life NFL football. We might see a bounce back with the Texans bringing in a new offensive line and Stroud starts to produce, but I think it's going to be a while before CJ Stroud's trade value catches up to any sort of production that could happen in the future. So I'm not looking to move on from Lamar to those options. I just don't see a clear path for those 3 things to shoot up in value compared to someone like Lamar Jackson. Here's a deal where I do think it's about even. Lamar and a 27 second, a 27 third for Devon Achane and a 27 first. I am kind of seeing Devon Achane at the top of his value. I think there's room for him to take a step back in 2026, but I could be fine taking the Devon Achane and first round pick side there. If we're just looking at even for even, Lamar for Achane, I think we're okay. I think that's even for even. And then you're taking a second and a third round pick and coming away with a first round pick. This is the type of deal that I would make thinking it's just going to be a sequence. I'll trade for Achane and then probably move him for something else, but then hold that first round pick or take that first round pick and pair it with my own and come away with another asset. But just moving that second and third would be enough for me to make that positional swap from Lamar to Achane. Now, if you've made it this far, there's a good chance you would like our other video that we have on Devon Achane where I mention, hey, I think there's room for a value to take a step back. I was high on Achane going into last year. I'm not as high right now. And there's a whole video explaining that one. So make sure you take a look if you haven't already. If you've gotten this far, maybe leave a like, a comment, a subscribe, and thank you very much. We will see you in the next one.